sports fans and fellow foodies? I'm Julie and welcome to my kitchen, where each week I talk sports while whipping up culinary creations. Today is Memorial Day and we have two very slumping baseball teams. We'll get to them in a second, but let's talk a little bit about some great stuff we saw this weekend. We had the Indy 500, closest finish in race history. We had some great NBA action going on, and my Northwestern Wildcats win another women's lacrosse title. If you're counting, that's number 9 for Coach Kelly Amonte Hiller. Love her, and not just because Tony Amonte, her brother, was one of my favorite Blackhawks to cover, but Kelly has built a dynasty at Northwestern. Congrats to my Wildcats. I was watching women's lacrosse this weekend and loved that finish. All right, now let's get to the not so good stuff. We've got Cubs and White Sox in a little bit of a funk. The Cubs now have lost 8 in a row. They're 2-10 over their last 12. Since that series with the White Sox, they've been kind of in a free-for-all. I know Sox fans are saying they broke the Cubs. The Cubs were kind of broken before that, but it certainly has accelerated a bit in their last couple series. And the White Sox, after that big momentum win over the Cubs, taking the last 2 of 3 in that series, they went out west and lost both their West Coast series. They dropped 2 of 3 in each of those two, one series in Seattle and one in San Francisco, and now they come back home to try and get their butts back on track. So both teams playing matinees today for Memorial Day. There is hope though. They can get out of this. I mean, Aaron Judge just had one of the worst slumps of his entire career. He went 16 games without a home run before hitting a walk-off against the first place Rays. So suffice it to say, if Aaron Judge can snap out of it, so can the Cubs and Sox. Here's what we're making today. It's called a slump. Yes, it really is. It's a fruit dessert. It's similar to a cobbler, but instead of going in the oven, it bakes on your stovetop. You steam your dumplings on top instead of baking them in the oven. So I've already got it a little bit jump started here for us. I've got some lovely summer fruit going on. It is blueberries and strawberries, but you can do raspberries, you can do blackberries. This is a perfect red, white, and blue kind of dessert today, and it smells oh so good. All right, so it is 4 cups of blueberries and it is 3 cups of strawberries. I hate when I read cups and then I have to go to the store and figure out how many pints and containers that is. Basically what you're looking for, 2 pints of blueberries will give you about 4 cups, and your strawberries, 1 pack like this, should give you your 3 cups. You want them sliced. I slice them by hand because I'm a pastry chef and we're used to slicing them quickly, but you can also use a slicer. Now this is a fancy little strawberry slicer. You cut off the tops, you put them in there and boop. But if you don't have one of these, you can use an egg slicer, just like you use when you're doing hard-boiled eggs. Put it in there, chop it down, and you get your nice even slices. So again, you want to save yourself a little time and aggravation. That's one way to go. I've got my berries in here, and I've added to them some fresh lemon zest, some fresh lemon juice. Oh my gosh, the lemons were looking so pretty at the grocery store. And I've added to that cornstarch, our thickening agent. That is key. As these berries start to release their juices, they're going to combine with the cornstarch and thicken things up over that heat. I've got it on kind of a low to medium heat right now. I also added a little bit of sugar into here. I had 2/3 of a cup of sugar, a little splash of vanilla, a little splash of salt, and that's all you need to get this going atop your stove. All right, so you can see what I've got here. Look at how nice this is thickening up. That's about 5 to 8 minutes of thickening. And then you're getting ready to put on your topping, which are the homemade biscuits. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna slide this up just a little bit so you can see what I'm doing with my biscuits. In a metal bowl with my whisk, I am adding to that 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of just granulated sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking powder. That's key because we want them to rise. I'm gonna add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. My vanilla we're gonna save until we get into the wet ingredients. Give it a quick whisk just to incorporate all your dry ingredients together. All right, here's my really cool hack. You're using 6 tablespoons of cold butter. Now normally, recipes will tell you to cube it, but then mixing it into the flour, it's hard to incorporate. Even using a pastry cutter, which everyone swears by, I really don't. Here's how I do mine. I use a grater. And I just take my grater and I work the butter in. You definitely don't want this butter warm because when you grab it with your hand, the heat from your hand is going to make it a little mushy. Just be careful you are not grating your fingers or your fingernails into your butter here. And sometimes, if I know I need like 6 tablespoons of butter, I'll actually cut 7 so that I have a little bit at the edge. I'm just going to have this little bitty piece of butter here that I won't use, but that's okay because I've got 6 tablespoons in here. Looks kind of like mozzarella cheese shreds, right? Makes it super easy to work it into the flour. This is how I make my scone recipe. It calls for frozen butter. So I grate that and it makes it super easy to incorporate. So you're gonna have these little, kind of like pea crumbles, little pea-sized crumbles, and it's gonna feel pretty dry. You're not gonna feel the butter in there, but again, it's cold, so you're just feeling some lumps. And now we're gonna add in our wet ingredients. So I have 2/3 of a cup of milk. I'm using whole milk, which I do like to use for pastry, but you can use skim, you can use anything you've got. You can use substitute milks like soy milk, almond milk. I'm adding that straight in there. And then I'm gonna add a teaspoon of vanilla. All right, this part gets messy. So roll up your sleeves, dig your hands in there. You're gonna incorporate all this. And right away, it's gonna feel like a gooky mess. That is what you are going for. That's what's gonna make these biscuits so soft and fluffy and taste so homemade, you can't stand it. You're gonna have people at your barbecue today and they're gonna be outside grilling and you're gonna be inside pulling this off the stove and bringing it out to serve it like a hero that you are in the kitchen, and everybody's gonna be amazed. All right, I'm gonna drop this into, you can see how sticky it is here, if that's what you want. I'm gonna drop it in atop my fruit filling here that is bubbling away nicely. And again, the whole purpose of this, we're gonna steam it when we put the lid on top, but we've also got heat coming up from the bottom from your fruit. So, get all this in here. You want it, you can do kind of golf ball sized chunks. You wanna flatten them a little bit so they cook evenly. And you'll see you're starting to get this hot mess all over your hands. No worries. That's the fun of playing in the kitchen, right? So you wanna leave a little space, and that's gonna be beautiful when your berries start poking through. So that is just about set in there. Get all my dough out of the bottom of the bowl. This is all set up. So we'll let you take a look at that while I do a quick pop to the sink to clean my hands off. Okay, back to the main event. I have all my biscuit dough in there. Again, it's just like a cobbler, but it doesn't go in the oven. So it's not gonna have that brown crispiness on top. It's gonna have a nice steamed effect. We're gonna put a lid on it. You do not wanna peek. You wanna trap that steam in there so it's cooking. And it's gonna be at least 20 minutes, maybe 30. You just wanna make sure that when you think it's getting kind of close, then you can lift up and take a peek in there. You'll want to make sure that it's not sticky. If you put a spoon to the top of the biscuits, you don't want it to stick to the spoon. You can kind of look underneath to see how it's doing. Your berries are going to be cooked, I guarantee you that. So you just want to make sure that that dough is cooked all the way through. And I'm going to add a little added touch here with my sugar in the raw. Put some sugar on top, just for a little crunch and makes it look a little extra fancy. We're going to let that work for a bit. All right, so what do we do about our baseball teams? Cubs, rough offense right now, especially situational hitting with runners in scoring position, pretty bad. And this is still an injury-depleted pitching staff. They are toward the bottom of the league in strikeouts, toward the bottom of the league in fastball velocity. They're not striking people out. They're relying on contact. And the defense has to be solid behind them, and they need some run support. So, couple quick fixes there. They've called up a couple of their top prospects to try and jumpstart the lineup. Hopefully that'll give them a little bit of energy as they kick off their series with the Pirates. The White Sox, they'll be in a game in the early going, and then by about the 5th inning or so, kablooey. At least that's what we've seen the last few days in San Francisco. I cannot watch this team give up grand slams anymore. I honestly think they're in every game because they have shown an ability to come back. But but they do have some of their key guys slumping, including Colson Montgomery. White Sox have made some changes as well, trying to get things moving, but that starting rotation is just so iffy right now. Hit or miss every day. When they're good, they're great. When they're bad, they're getting knocked out early and you're going to a bullpen that also has some sketchy moments. I really can't take much more of Jordan Leisure. I'm sure he's a really nice guy, but when he got called back up, I just went. So hopefully the White Sox pitching gets back on track and their hitters, just like the Cubs, need to come up with runners in scoring position. They need to get some hitting from the bottom of their lineup, and they're still kind of boneheaded sometimes on the base paths. So there's hope, though. There's always hope, right? All right, let's take a look at how our beautiful berries are looking that I did on the stove already. So this one, you'll see, got a little steam trying to peek out there. And there are our beautiful biscuits on top. You can see they've got a little bit of brown, but it's mostly brown from the sugar. But when I touch them, not sticky. They're almost kind of like a spongy consistency. So what you will want to do, you will want to let yours sit for a little bit. Mine's pretty thick. It's been on there for a while. So you can see it's not soup. You don't want berry soup. Well, maybe you do. I mean, I've made strawberry soup. It's delicious in the summer, cold strawberry soup. I'm gonna go ahead and scoop all this in here. You can leave it pretty and leave the biscuit showing on top. I'm just putting it all in there, berries poking through. You can smell how good those berries are if you're in the kitchen. For those of you watching, just imagine you're catching that fresh berry aroma. As soon as they start popping and release the juices, your kitchen will smell amazing. All right, so you want to make this really special for your Memorial Day celebration today? Of course you do. I'm going to go ahead and grab a little vanilla bean ice cream. Again, you probably want to let it cool a little bit. I'm just going to dump it right on there. It's going to start to melt, but it's going to be oh so yummy. You got a beautiful, fresh, homemade fruit dessert that you can serve for company or just sit on the couch and eat by yourself as you're watching the Cubs and Sox try and get out of their slumps. It's doable. It can happen. I have faith in them, and I have faith in you that you can recreate this beautiful dessert yourselves. We're remembering today our fallen soldiers. I hope you have a peaceful, reflective Memorial Day if you are mourning those that you've lost in battle. And we're thinking of you, and I appreciate you guys joining me here in my kitchen today. We'll see you next time.